Well, thank you, Chris, for agreeing to be on the show. This is my brother, Chris, and we want to take a little time today and talk about something that Chris actually mentioned to me the other day. And it was that when it comes to work and things that are kind of we're responsible for, we will have the discipline to do whatever is needed, but yet sometimes in our own lives, we don't tend to take that kind of initiative. What were you thinking about when it came to that, Chris?
Um, I'm obviously new in my career, not new in my career, new in my position for the past year, year and a half, and it is, I'm sure, just like what you're doing to, different hours but similar degree. Sometimes you're on call 24/7. There's deadlines you have to hit. There are large obstacles in your way, and if you want to be highly successful at what you do, it's not a question of just complaining and moaning and saying, "Oh no, I have another thing to do." It's how are you attacking it? How are you getting it done? How are you doing it in the most efficient process? Especially time and time again. How are you using what you learned last time to make it even more efficient? And I've been in a new position, working quite a bit more in a different restaurant, and I've been able to excel here. But what I've
Hmm.
noticed with the amount of time and making sure that I'm constantly doing those right things in work, other things when it comes to me and just what I should be doing for me, I am not even close to as thorough, conscientious, precise, persistent on any of those things. And I think it's, I think you probably deal with similar things. And I know dad dealt with similar things.
Hmm.
I think mom is that outlier out of, our family. Just even when putting in long hours and dealing with it all the time, she always
Hmm.
was able to find a way to intermittently put in those other things and make sure she was hitting them. Where for us, I feel like it's go, 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 go 100% on one thing. That one thing usually being work and us trying to get further in our careers. And then when it comes to us personally, we're like, all right, throw that bag of shit to the side.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I mirror that in a lot of ways. I know for me, in a lot of ways, I definitely let my health decline for I'd say about 5 to 6 years in a row, where between work, home life, dealing with new kids, trying to get all these things done. If I was on trial, sometimes that would be a 12, 14-hour day, and by the wayside, at the end of the day, what I really wasn't realizing, and it wasn't until now that I realize that by neglecting myself, I was actually diminishing my capabilities in a lot of ways. And the funny thing is, we don't always realize it in the moment, and it's hard, to say that it's easy to start taking care of yourself, to start eating right when you're getting out of work, say at 10 o'clock at night, and the only thing that's open is a fast food restaurant because you're starving, you're going to grab anything you can. It's understandable, and I think that a lot of us fall into that path, and obviously we saw it firsthand, and we've both gone through it. And I think one of the things that I found is it's the small little changes that you can make. Maybe it's just a 10-minute walk, maybe it's just something that you just start, because if you don't, it just becomes so daunting. And I agree, whenever you're trying to climb that ladder, it's hard. It's certainly difficult. Now, I know that you said obviously you started in a new position in a new restaurant, but you've been working in restaurants for going on what, 15 years now, give or take?
Yeah, I mean, ever since I was what, 15 or yeah, I think 15. We started at that place, on Long
Hmm.
Island, and
Sure.
it was an interesting place to start in restaurant, to say the least.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would I'd love to hear some of your takeaways from that. I mean, we had quite an experience, and for anyone listening, so my brother and myself and a few other people worked in this barbecue restaurant, and it was a fun experience, but at times it would get a bit hectic, and we kind of have to think on the fly. And I remember one time you, in particular, with the assistant manager, really had to think on the fly when it came to an issue in the parking lot. Do you want to share that with us?
Yeah, that was a very different style of restaurant than what I was in.
Mm,
Privately owned, and we had gone from one person when I had first started, like maybe a week. You had probably been working there for, I want to say, a few months, and got me the job. And then we went to a different owner,
mhm.
and that owner hired a new general manager. And this general manager was an okay guy, nice enough guy, but really liked to partake in libations. Had no problem being that classic stereotypical bar owner who, let's say we opened at 4, he was drinking at 3:30, and he was
Yep.
sitting at that bar just drinking Black Russians. I remember that was the first drink I learned how to make, Black Russian. You got to learn how to
Yeah.
make Black Russian. Um, and I had waited on. I'll never forget this. Probably this Russian couple who were in their mid 60s, super super sweet. And keep in mind, I was 16 years old at the time. I think should
Yeah.
not have been waiting tables. Didn't really get any formal training. It was really just go talk to them. Try not to mess anything up, and bring stuff in, figure it out. But it was a great job, and they had a nice time. They liked me, everything. Thanked me on the way out, and I'll never forget. About probably like 3 minutes after they left and thanked me, they come back in and they were just they. You could see they were like almost awestruck, but a little bit just bewildered. And they're like, "Hey, just I don't know if we should tell you, or maybe we should call the cops or EMS. There's a guy in your parking lot. He is trapped under a motorcycle with no teeth." We're like, oh my god, okay. Is he moving? Is he like no? He's like, no, he seems to either be passed out. We're like, okay, we'll call the authorities, get out of here, we'll take care of it. Because both me and the assistant manager were aware that that was our GM at the time. And he used to love, when he wasn't sitting at our bar, there was a very nice high-end steakhouse that's still down the street from that place where we worked,
Yes.
and he would go there and he would run up a bar tab. And it must have been a couple of different occasions that he was unable to pay his bar tab in the moment.
Mm.
So they had called over, and funnily enough, our cousin was the hostess at the time.
Yes.
And she picked up the phone and they're like, "Hey, this guy has like a $300 marker at this place. You need to come and bring him money, or we're not letting him leave here. Like, he is
Yeah.
not in a condition to drive." And so he decided that he was not paying that. He was in the condition to drive. But to try to stop him, they had removed the seat from his motorcycle. They took off, the seat. So
Yes.
hopefully this guy's not going to just take off on a bare bike and go. He did. Passed out in the parking lot right when he probably went to put his kickstand down or whatever it may have been. Bike fell over him. He's driving a fat Harley, and he was just pinned under. So me and the assistant manager, we pull the bike off of him, get it situated, and then end up taking him, pretty much fireman carrying him through the side door. And we used to have a back room that was like never used with a pool table.
Yep.
And we threw him on the pool table and, said, all right, you're going to sleep it off in here. And then I think the rest of the story that persists after that, that you
Yep.
were more part of than I was, because I
Yeah.
think I had caught the very beginning of it, but then I left very quickly, and you stayed for a
Yeah.
while.
So what I remember from that story, the beginning part, was you were toward the front of the restaurant. I was toward the back. I think I was bringing food out, or I was bringing drinks to customers or something at the time. And I saw you and the assistant manager sprint out of the restaurant, full speed, like out the door. I thought something happened. I had no idea. And you called me on my cell phone, and you're like, "You gotta open the side door." And I'm like, "What?" So I open the side door, and you guys brought him in. You put him on the pool table, and we ended up working that night. And when we were closing up at about 11:30, he was still there on the pool table asleep. So we made the decision to leave him there. We didn't know what else to do, and we tried waking him. He wasn't going to wake, and we said, "All right, we'll leave him there, whatever." So we left. The next morning. I had come in. I had opened the restaurant, I think at around 10, and he was there, and he was sitting. He was having a cup of coffee, and he said it was weird. I woke up and I thought I was outside laying on the grass because it was all green, but I was in on the pool table. I was like, yeah, you kind of dropped your motorcycle on yourself. And he goes, yeah, I can't find my seat. And I was like, because it's down the street at the bar. You may want to fix that.
Yeah,
And yeah, that was an
literally only
experience to say the
80th House,
least.
that other restaurant.
Yeah. But as funny as that was, as much of an experience as that was, I think one of the things that you and I both took out of that was to think on our feet because we didn't have much of a choice in those situations, especially you. I mean, you had such little training, if any, at that point. I think it was me just being like, yeah, you write this down, you put it in here, and but I guess the point that I'm trying to make is what, if anything, have you taken from that or other instances that have really helped you now where you have a very different job that's obviously much more stable and professional and obviously polished to say the least.
But I would say it's almost the same exact thing to a certain degree.
Mm,
You have to, like, the most important thing with my job, a majority of the time, is you just have to know how to. One, I tell everybody I have like a precognition when it comes to restaurants at this point. Like, you can
mhm,
see when you know the machine X is leading to Y, and this is moving to this point, and this person's getting stressed out, and all this stuff. So, if you're really good at it, you have that precognition of what's going to happen. If you know the flow of your night, you know when you're going to get in trouble and you're not going to get in trouble. But you need to have that on your feet and just moving and making decisions and not being uncomfortable with the fact that you're going to make some wrong ones. And that job really taught me. I tell everybody what we do is we slick sticks. We're not curing cancer. We're not fixing the whole entire infrastructure of the world. But it's all about how you do it. And for me, it was always just like almost like watching mom and dad when we have family parties, and like you
mhm,
just want to make sure you see somebody, you start to learn what they like, anticipate what their needs are, and if you can do that, especially in today's day and age, I would say after COVID, service as a whole has just fallen off. Um,
mm,
you definitely still have some really great places and you're getting some good hospitality, but compared to what it was previously, I think that bar for what 20% is considered is at your ankles at this point. Where 20% used to be you better know what you're doing, you better be quality at what you do, and so you were getting that up quite a bit more. But I think COVID drove a lot of people out of the service industry, and understandably so.
do you feel that there's greater opportunity now because the bar has gone low for you really to wow people or to kind of change their mind or make it better, or are their expectations changed with the service change obviously since COVID because it had such a effect on, I think, not only individuals but the collective psyche.
I would say for a majority of places, regardless if you're mom and pop, you're corporate, it's tougher. Inflation is a crazy thing. You're
Mhm,
talking restaurants usually run on a margin of making between 10 to 20%. So you do $1 million in sales, you're lucky if you see 100 to $200,000 of that. And most restaurants, if you're making 10%, killing it. So they're operating below that threshold. So you add
mhm,
in, hey, what you were buying in produce and food cost was last year at you know $20 a pop. Everything's $30 a pop now. You have seen massive spikes in all that thing. Um, the amount that it costs for labor, all those different variables. I think for those larger scale restaurants that were privately owned, you were going to see less and less of them. But on the flip side of that, I think that there is an opportunity, if you know how to do it properly, to have a 10 to 12 table, six bar seat, unbelievable restaurant that could thrive and make a good amount of money. But that is once again you cutting down the labor aspect quite a bit, you having your hand in it,
mhm,
and then once again with it's all economy scale, with how
mhm,
much you can make and stuff like that. So if I were to do my ideal thing, let's say,
mhm,
I wanted to go out on my own, it would probably be to start with a brick and mortar that was 10 to 15 or 16 tables, 6 to 10 bar seats, You got to find a great chef, a partner. I have one person in mind who I think if we worked together, we would
Hmm.
destroy the person. Like we would kill it, and then it's all about figuring out how to standardize, streamline, and then expand. And you don't want to do it too quickly, you don't want to be too slow, but all that stuff.
You had mentioned brick and mortar. Obviously, in the advent of ghost kitchens being a thing and of that nature, have you
Yeah,
noticed that being something that has taken away from the dining experience where people would go out because they can kind of get these either boutique type things or these exclusives that maybe are only at a ghost kitchen, like a Mr. Beast burger or something like that?
100%. I wouldn't say that's going to hit the market or clientele I would be looking to appeal to, but just in terms of when it comes to market share, I would say ghost kitchens have taken up a massive amount
Mm,
since COVID. You talk Mr. Beast Burger. There are so many. If you look on these DoorDash, these Uber Eats, these
yeah.
all these maps, almost every one of these current corporate restaurants, I can promise you, are subsidizing their cost by adding in some sort of secondary concept that goes under a different name, whether they brand it to them or they don't brand it to them. It varies depending on the restaurant and if it's their own kind of concept or they're letting somebody buy in and charging them a premium to sell their food, like Mr. Beast Burger does. There
Right.
is quite a bit, quite a
Hmm.
bit. And there's definitely something to be said. I'm sure if you could, I believe one of like the biggest things is like one of the now biggest pizza purveyors is that they are a ghost kitchen that has sold out like their product. You put it in an oven, you pay X amount, and then you're able to yield from it. But it's under their brand, their standard, all these different things, and they franchise it for a super short amount. But I believe they're like the second largest now pizza producer in the country. You just don't hear about them because it's all ghost kitchen.
Yeah, that's amazing when you think about it, because that's something that 5, 6 years ago really wasn't a thing at
Not at all.
all.
Not at all.
So it's amazing how the world changes now. As we're getting on here, is there any advice you would give to somebody who's starting out or getting into the restaurant or hospitality field that you feel would help them? Obviously, I think that you've learned a lot about human nature. Obviously, you spoke a lot about being able to anticipate, which I think is mostly emotional intelligence, which obviously is important not just in restaurants but throughout. I think any sector of life. To be honest, I notice it in my own profession. If I'm deposing somebody, being able to pick up on their cues is unbelievably valuable. But is there any advice you would give to somebody who's either starting out or thinking about getting into it or want to go to the next level?
I'll keep it more broad, just hospitality in general.
Hmm.
You got to really enjoy hospitality in general. You got to be able to, and it's very funny because I'm quite an introverted person most of the time. You know me, like I'm quite
Yes.
quiet a lot of the time. I like to listen and all that stuff, but I love taking care of people. I love anticipating people's needs. I think that quietness, sometimes it can be seen as not that social, but that's because I'm watching and I'm
Mhm.
listening and I'm learning as much as I can about everybody about it. And I would say if you want to go into this industry, that's one of the most important things to do. Understand how to talk to people, understand how to have that interpersonal connection, whether it's superficial or it's not. When it comes to hospitality, you are on a stage, and everybody used to say good service is treat other people how you want to be treated, right?
Mhm.
What you really want to do is treat that person how they want to be treated.
Mm.
Doesn't matter how you want to be treated. When I go to dinner, I want to have a server who's quick,
The
who's clean,
platinum rule.
takes my drink
Yeah.
order, does this, does that. Some people want to sit there and have a 20-minute long conversation with their server. I can't sit at the table for 20 minutes and have a conversation with you, but how can I have an impactful minute and a half and remember your name and say hello to you and do those different things? Um, so it's figuring out what does that person who you're taking care of want. And I tell all of my staff and everybody I work with, you earn somebody's trust. You show them that you have the presence of mind. Like that comes to that quick decision making.
Mhm.
It's funny, I had a table of these three guys. They were some sort of VIP bankers, and they come in and they want a booth. So I show them to a booth, but as I'm walking by, the guy says, "I hope this is a large booth." And the booths we have there are not large, but we have banquettes that have large tables that are half booths, half tables. So I'm walking to the table, I go, hey, gentlemen, how's this table right here? And the guy's like, it's okay. I go, I heard you wanted a large table. What do you think about that? It's not a booth, but it's a half banquet. If somebody wants to in a booth, somebody wants a chair, he goes, that's exactly what I want. Then he goes, thank you for the quick decision making, all that stuff. But it's just that little thing, and then you sit them down, introduce yourself. Hey, you guys need anything? Just let me know. That little 45-second conversation, learning their name, just saying hello, makes an experience. And
Mm.
then you have, you, I tell everybody, it's like you're seeing the field. You're almost a quarterback or you're a point guard. You're seeing the whole field. And that's what a restaurant is. That's what a party is. That's what any sort of hospitality event is. It's you seeing all these interactions and perceptions and people and really understanding what each person wants and what does this table want compared to this table, what does this guest want compared to this guest. And you want to do hospitality at a high level, that's what you need to do. And if you can do that, you will be very, very successful. You can make quite a bit of money. You can make some unbelievable relationships, but you work terrible hours, you work holidays, and
Mm.
also be ready to take some abuse. And that is what I will tell anybody who wants to go into management. I give you all of the bad things before I give you a single good thing because it's tough.
No, I think anyone that listens to that would obviously appreciate it because you get warts and all, so you might as well know what it is before you start
100%.
envisioning, the glory. Um,
Especially, don't mean to cut you off, but especially when I was in California, being so close to Napa Valley, all of these people they get to see or hear about. Chris would go to these several tastings in here, and it didn't cost any money. You get invited to these lavish dinners, you get invited to these lavish fundraiser parties, and all these different events. That if you're somebody who's just watching from the outside, you're like, oh, that could seem pretty cool. Those are some nice kickbacks and X, Y, and Z. But it comes with quite a bit of heavy.
well, I think a lot of people don't really want to see the grind day in, day out. They just want to be there at the finish line to celebrate the victory, to be
Yeah,
honest.
that's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
especially in
I
today's
want
day and
to,
age.
I would like to end this on a positive note. What is your favorite or most rewarding restaurant story or something that sticks out in your mind? And you're like, that was a really great day or that was a really great thing.
Favorite. So favorite thing about restaurants for me,
Mm.
and then I'll give my favorite story. So favorite thing about restaurants for me is one, it's something different every day, different challenge. You're never, if you're sitting behind a desk, it's not more than 15 minutes at a time. And it's always something different. You're meeting new people, different problems, whether they're good or they're bad. And one of the best pieces of advice I ever got is every problem you get, you can either look at it as an issue or you can look at it as a way to expand your foundation.
Yeah.
So I really took that to heart, and that's how I look at every issue I get today. And then also mentoring people, getting to watch somebody who was kind of like me, who's been in the restaurant industry for a while and didn't know what to do with their life, uh, go from I have no idea what I'm going to do. Okay, maybe I could be kind of interested in this, having that conversation with them, showing them the door, and then they're like, all right, I want to do that, and then really showing them a path to success. For me, it's been I've had some great mentors who have taught me some unbelievable things, and that's why I'm able to do what I am today. But that is probably my favorite part about restaurants. And then favorite story is, see, you want to enter a positive note. My favorite story is on like it is not negative, but it's a crazy story. So
Okay.
I won't give any details to where it was,
That's fine.
but I had worked at a restaurant
Hmm.
and we had opened for maybe 15 minutes, and this other person that I had worked with, he was a very good friend of mine, still a good friend of mine, and he had a roommate who was just off his rocker, had been dabbling in things he shouldn't have been dabbling with. Um,
Mm.
was a poor situation and had been harassing my very good friend. And like my had gone away for about 3 or 4 months, and then in the past couple of days, my friend confided with me like, "Hey, that's just being really weird with me." So I'm like, "Okay, well, if it gets to this point, there's always other steps we can take or talk out. Just, let's talk about it and we can figure it out. Just let me know if you get to that point. And about 15 minutes into the shift, it was, one of those, I would say, cooler California days. So probably like 58, 60 degrees outside, and inside it was like 80, 82. So the heat was just pumped up. And I'm walking towards the host, and we have these massive glass windows that kind of surround the whole front that are probably 13 by 9 feet each. And this window just explodes. And I'm like, what is going on right now? I in that split second moment, I thought that it was so cool outside and it was so warm inside that it just shattered the window. Oh my God, thermodynamics.
Yeah.
But no, ends up it is this guy, and he is shooting at the restaurant
Oh my
from the
God.
street about 200 feet away, and hits the window. Ends up, there are two girls behind the host stand, me 15 feet away. Ends up hitting about 5 feet above their head, and then hitting the car in the parking lot. And then it was just, the next going from that happening, and my operating partner's off that day, and luckily he gave me, we had not similar situations but had conversations about, hey, if this happens, what do you do, all this stuff. So got everybody into the kitchen when there's no windows, and then calling the cops, and then calling my operating partner, and then calling the district manager, and then calling the vice president of the company, and then calling the cops again, and then all these different things that then persisted for the next 5-6 hours. And then the local news showing up and then calling the restaurant and asking what happened. So that was definitely one of the most eventful days
I'm sure that'll keep with you forever.
I've ever had. But once again, it was just like another, like, you would never know what to do until it happens.
It's
So
true.
God forbid
Listen,
it ever does. But
thankfully, no one in your restaurant was injured, and that's a blessing in and of itself. So that's certainly a positive note to take away from it, I think.
yeah. So that is probably, I don't know, my favorite story, but I'd say my most memorable story. My
Sure.
favorite stories are probably like at my last restaurant, just the more communal things that we did. We'd always do potlucks and family meals, and
Mm.
even when I left, I didn't even think this was a possibility, but ended up happening. We were able to all have the night off together because another restaurant came to cover, and we went out to dinner together, and then we went bowling, and it was just not something, because you guys, we're open 7 days a week. The only time that we're off is on Christmas. So you do
Yeah.
not have off with everybody that you work, like, ever. Maybe you do a manager outing once a year. And then even then, somebody's probably on vacation. But this was one of the only times that I was able to, a team of 10 of us, we were able to all go out to dinner and then go bowling and just, have a really good time. So that's probably one of my favorite memories.
That's awesome. I mean, one of the things that I always took out of working in restaurants was that you become incredibly close with your coworkers because you really are in the trenches in a lot of ways. And just hearing something like that is always so positive.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say thank you so much for taking the time today to record this. I really appreciate you and everything. I love you, brother.
I
And
love
I
it.
will talk to you later. Thank you again.
Hopefully we can do this again.
Absolutely. I'd love to. I'll
All
talk
right.
to you later.
I'll talk to you
Have a
later.
good
All
one.
right.